Is Dave in there? Is Dave still in the office?
I think we want to start. Is it Andrew that's there?
Yeah. I just want to make sure we're good to go.
Yeah.
So we all good to go?
TV's off.
I don't know how to do it.
It's not, so when you give me a wave, you'll.
Oh, perfect.
Well, you can see me doing the wave then.
I can see you.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
my camera.
2 minutes.
Thanks, Andrew.
Tommy.
I just can't believe it. She looks all alone. I know.
She doesn't
Like
want
a bat.
she doesn't want to be on the camera.
Smart. She has a bunch of boxes of cinnamon toast crunch.
To
If she
keep her
gets hungry.
company.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Are they honey nut Cheerios?
We could only hope.
So I'm gonna give away. Everybody all set? You're recording also on you on Zoom?
Yeah, yes, I can hit record. I can just record. And we're also live on YouTube, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock on June 16th. Our next Board of Selectmen's meeting is June 23rd at 6 p.m. It's going to be next door, not here. This is audio and video recorded. It'll be put on Channel 9 at some point in the very near future. It's also live on YouTube, and it's going to be a Zoom meeting also. So could everybody stand for the pledge of allegiance?
My allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first agenda item is on the new business is review, discuss, and act on a host community agreement to Oasis LLC. Everybody have an opportunity to take a look at that agreement.
Yes.
And does anybody have any questions about that? This is very similar to the one that we signed the last time, but the difference is that this is just cultivation, it's not manufacturing, not making edibles or anything like that.
I'm not sure it's a question, but more of a comment. I just wanted to give a kudos on the $25,000 upfront payment. I know it's deducted from the 3% impact fee that's imposed if we sign this on Pure Oasis, but I really appreciated that. It's in accordance with the other ones that we did, so I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Z.
Yes, Selectman Hull.
I was just looking for an update in regards to whether or not this has gone before the planning board or the ZBA as of yet.
No, it hasn't. So normally, because they're in the process of doing this, this is the host agreement. Obviously, if they don't purchase the building, they don't start the cultivation, that kind of stuff, this won't apply. But they still got several hurdles. And, you know, ZBA is one of them, as well as the planning board. I don't know if there's any other committees, but that's not done. It's going to be sooner rather than later. And it obviously will be notified to be posted, as well as the abutters to 1620 Spring Street. So for the public, this is for 1620 Spring Street. This is the old Raytheon, it's been called. And there's a plan,
620.
620.
620, right?
620 Spring Street.
What did I say?
16.
Actually,
That's someone's house.
play
probably.
that tape back. No. Or it says 620, but anyway, 620 Spring Street. And there's a group of people that want to cultivate marijuana there, not to manufacture, not to make any products out of it, but they're gonna cultivate, and they will sell it to different businesses around here and further away.
And not to sell it either.
Yeah, they're not
Like
selling,
they're not-
yeah,
no
they're gonna sell it
retail
to, as a wholesale item to other dispensaries. And they also have a dispensary in Dorchester, so they'll be growing the product here and then manufacturing it here and bringing it to their dispensary. I believe it's in Dorchester. I'll entertain a motion if there's no further questions.
Before I make a motion, I do have one last question. The annual payment of the community impact fee is due and payable no later than 90 days from the close of the calendar year. I assume that's once they're up and running, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like the agreement is basically would commence when actually when the company obtains a license and they're approved to begin operations by the Cannabis by the Cannabis Control Commission.
Okay.
So yeah, like it would start then at that point, but they need to have this in place in order to go. So in order to go forward through the state and the state agencies as well, it has to begin the planning. Like actually like a process with the planning board through the special permit process as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now, this $25,000 payment does not, or does include all permitting fees.
It's nothing to do with the permitting fees.
No.
So this, they have to pay, unless they're waived all fees, they still expect, along with paying real estate taxes, personal taxes, they have to pay that 25,000 separate. That's a part of that 3%. So if it comes out that they, at the end of a calendar year, they owe us $100,000, they've already given us the 25,000. So we're getting that upfront, which is advantage for the town. So I'll still entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the host community agreement between the town of Dayton and Pure Oasis LLC as presented and amended this evening.
Second, just so the public knows, they had a virtual meeting last Thursday that the public was invited to, and people from the public asked questions about it, so the neighbors and so people know what's going on. Is there any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. The next item is review, discuss, and act on disclosure by non-elected municipal employee, building commissioner Jim Agia. We were giving a disclosure by Jim Agia. He's the building commissioner, and he has had some involvement with the, and we'll discuss that as the next item, with the library as the different possibilities that we will be doing with the library, leasing, building, whatever. And because he owns property in Dayton that may become property that we may lease, he's bringing this to our attention that, so we have three options. We can either vote to allow him to proceed. We can vote to proceed up until the point that we have a RFP is put out, or we can ask that he recuse himself of the whole process. So, any questions from?
My only question is, would the vote be exclude him from the municipal building study committee, or would this be strictly regarding the library?
I believe it's regarding the library because there's
Okay.
no other conflict or whatever you want to call it, conflict with anything else that group is discussing.
I have no further questions.
Any other questions?
No.
So I'll express my personal feeling that we ought to allow him to proceed with this process up until any point the RFP is put out. So we have three options. We can just let him proceed and fully participate in whatever process we're gonna do with the library. We can tell him that he's got to recuse himself, he has nothing to do with it, or we can let him proceed until we get to the point where we got RFP out there. And if his business, he has a partner, if his business wishes to be one of those facilities that we may want to consider, he would recuse himself at that point from any further discussion with us, the board, on that issue.
Can I give my personal opinion? I think the last choice is probably the best. Just my personal opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I support your recommendation.
My recommendation.
Yes,
So I will entertain a motion that we proceed up until the point that the RFP is put out.
I will second that motion.
I'm gonna let you make the motion, and I'm going to step down and second that motion. Any discussion?
I'm happy to second it. You don't need to step down.
Any discussion?
No, no discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I make a motion that Mr. Aguirre continue in his current capacity, serving on that task force until the RFP process has reached, been sent out.
For the library. And I
For
will
the
second
library.
that.
Any discussion on that motion?
I have none.
If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. The third item is the Dayton Library, Public Library reopening update. Are you doing that, or is?
No, I don't mind speaking.
Okay.
I
If
like
you want
that.
to start, yeah.
Yes, yes, you can.
Now that we give permission to.
Thank you. I contacted the state because I felt my involvement was important for the townspeople, the taxpayers, and the library. I feel passionate about certain things. That's one of the things that I'd like us to finally bring to the forefront and deal with once and for all. So thank you for allowing me to stay involved. This discussion, I think, is going to go beyond tonight, but I want you to know, in my absence last week, I watched the meeting. I took the feedback. I think it was a great discussion. It was a good start to the dialogue. But I also want you to know that the Building Needs Study Committee in no way was to say this is the direction that we need to go. We wanted that to be a starting point that included brought in the selectmen, and then open up the dialogue between the committee, the selectmen, and the townspeople to figure out what Dayton needs to do to finally get this library situation figured out. So although we did make a couple of recommendations, I think it's fairly fluid. Obviously, since then, we've acted through the Administrator Mullen with seeing what other avenues were available. So, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I want to, have the dialogue, bring in the committee members so that they can be heard as well. Even though I authored the letter, it was all voices that were on paper. So, and then debate it like professionals and figure out what the best thing for the town is and what the best thing for the library is. I can give you one update though. The structural analysis of the primetime building was brought up. The structural engineer was 3 weeks out. I do know him. I called him, had a technical conversation with him. That building would be ruled out if we were to move books into it. So I don't see any reason for wasting taxpayer dollars. I feel comfortable with the discussion I had with him. So we can rule out that as an option for the library if we wanted to bring the books there. One of the reasons we came up with the presentation as written was that we were very conscious of not fracturing the library any more than it already has been. I think we really need to be conscious of that. We've done that in the past, and I know when we moved some departments to Old Town Hall, there was discussion about fracturing government. We're all on the same campus, but some of the solutions to the library, unless we really put our mind to this, is to separate the different services that they have. And I want to be careful about that because now we're taking them from a building they couldn't fit in to multiple buildings. And I just don't know how that's going to work for logistics with the library. So that said, I know we can go on for hours about this, and I suggest we do. I just think that maybe this isn't the forum. We need to maybe publicize it.
And we need more information
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So just so the public knows, the library, the Andrew Carnegie Public library, Dayton's public library, will not be used as a library because it's not big enough, it's not safe. Although we're going to put a new egress into the building because it needs 2 egresses on the main floor so that people can leave the building safely. And we're going to have the bathrooms become handicap bathrooms so the public can use those. But still, it won't be used as a library. It's just too small. You may know already that the Mass Library Commission has preliminarily given us, will give us $4 million towards adding on to the Andrew Carnegie Library. And the town would have to match that. We're number 11. They usually do 2 a year. So at some point we're going to come up with that. I'll speak for myself and not the rest of the board. I personally don't think that's a good idea. Even the plan they have for the library, they say it's going to be good for 20 years. So then we're going to be stuck with they're talking about putting a second floor as well as expanding on the building a little bit. We still got the problems with the parking lot. I personally think we ought to build a new library. Having said that, we're in a situation that come just about Labor Day, I think the day is. We're going to, if we don't have a library set up somewhere in town, we're actually going to lose our right to have a library. They'll stop us and we won't be able to go to any other library, the sales, and go and use our cards here and go to, say, for example, the Somerset Library. So we're trying to find a temporary place for a library. One of the options was, we talked about anyway, was prime time, which is not being used. As some of you know, that we've had some elderly people go over there pre-pandemic, people with Alzheimer's, and they would be stay there for the day. It was like a daycare, but we haven't opened it since the pandemic, and we're not sure at what point we're going to open it up. But in order for that to be used as a library, it has to be able to hold 150 pounds per square foot. So if I just stood in a square foot, it's going to already be too much. And the books are heavy, as you know, there's a lot of books. I had asked a question last week, if we put less books over there, spread them out a little bit. That's not a possibility. It has to still be that 150. So the report that we just got tonight is that we can't go to prime time for the library. So now we're looking at other options. We're thinking about possibly leasing something in Dayton for the library. There's also that possibility of getting it's not actually a trailer though, but
It's a modular unit.
12 by 60 at a reasonable price. We would be leasing that. And we're checking in to see whether the CARES Act will cover that, at least for the first year, at least until the end of this calendar year, because the CARES Act ends after that. And then this will have to be voted on by the public, obviously. So those are different options that we have. So yes, Selectmen help.
In regards to discussions about whether or not we're going to, down the road, have a new building or remodel the old one, I strongly support a public forum to discuss the options and to present to the people cost breakdown, so they can be very much a part of the decision-making process.
That's sort of what I was alluding to by not getting in too deep right now. I want to bring other committee members in. I want to invite the public in, and I want to discuss it, in a democratic fashion, the way it should be discussed.
Yeah, and if our number comes up for the library for the addition to the Andrew Carnegie, that has to be voted on by the residents. So we're not at that point, but I just thought there's so many people here. I thought maybe they were interested in the library, so I was giving that information. So we're not voting on anything tonight. I'm just expressing, and I've said it for years, my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for the board. My personal opinion is that it's cheaper for the town of Dayton to build a new library, and it's ours. It's a permanent building for us, and it's not going to expire in 5, 10, or 15 years. So we're not going to be taking. Yes, you're going to say something.
Now, the only question I had is, we're heading up to the end of the fiscal year, and we had discussed quickly the option of a modular building to house part of the library. That discussion may have to happen quicker than the public forum. Are we willing to do that? Or, I mean, we're running out of meetings for the end of the fiscal year. So
Yes,
We only have one more.
yeah,
we have one more. We could possibly have a second, but it's really towards the end of the year. No, I mean, I think probably, hopefully next week we'll have an answer on the CARES Act, whether they would cover the modular. And then, yeah.
Yes, and at this point, one of the things, I mean, in terms of a modular, that wouldn't be any type of, I think, longer term. Oh, like longer term, like opportunity and solution in any way, shape, or form. That would really just get us to the Labor Day open date. That's it.
The reason why I mentioned this is the town administrator and I were brainstorming in case the CARES Act does not come through, we can't use CARES Act funding. And one of the options that I put on the table was at the end of the year, we had a spending freeze. We're going to end up with a lot of accounts that have additional funds in them. And maybe we could do a year-end transfer to pay for this because the cost was fairly reasonable. I think with the utility connections, it was going to be a little less than $40,000. That's for a one-year lease. So, I hate to miss the opportunity if CARES Act doesn't come through. And being that June 30th is around the corner, we may want to have that discussion at the next meeting, albeit outside of the public forum, but at least we can maybe get the funds allocated. So if we decide to go that route, we can pay for it.
I just wanted to clarify, when I said a public forum, it was not for the temporary relocation. It was for what we're going to do at the end of year one when we need a building, whether it be the old one remodeled or a brand new one.
Okay.
I have a library trustee. Do you want to make any comment on this? We're not making a decision tonight, but I presented.
No, I'm sorry, I came in late, but it sounds like continued effort to solve the initial problem. And, I agree, Mr. Hull, that public forum on plans for the future of the library are important. I'm certainly committed to that.
So, question I have then is when that year is up, we don't have an option to lease that for additional year.
That would be as to whether it's available or not. For 1 year. They're only leasing 1 year. At least that's what I was told. Yeah. So I guess if we want it for a longer term, we're going to ask for more money.
Yeah,
upfront.
sure.
So
Yeah, right now we're looking to have CARES cover, so they're not going to care. They're not going to
Yeah.
cover. More than, I didn't mean to care. They're not going to cover it for longer than a year because the fund's going to run out in December. And they would hopefully they would provide us with the initial money for the first year.
So one of the reluctancies I have with longer than a year is, as Selectmen's office said last week, modulars, trailers tend to become permanent. And I would hate to see that happen, especially since in order to do that, we're going to fracture the department and the library is going to be fragmented. So I think if that gets us through the year and we can have 2 locations, I think a bigger discussion needs to be when and if we can get a shovel in the ground and what do we do after the year to get us to that point. We won't be building a library in a year, I guarantee that.
Well, absolutely.
But if we have some sort of plan, then maybe we can say, okay, after the 1 year, do we have another short-term plan that puts the library back together while we're getting this new library off the ground?
So I think that, and I know this is preliminary, but if we could get CARES to pay for anything to offset, like the taxpayers funding a temporary solution, I think that that's a plus. And then, we could figure out the second year and the third year because I think we're 12 on that.
We're 11 and 12, but they're not even accepting new applications.
Correct.
They have 11 and 12 to add to
Correct.
the library and Carnegie.
Correct.
I don't think taxpayers are going to support that.
Yeah,
I know I don't
absolutely.
support it. So
I get that.
I actually believe it's cheaper to build a new library than $8 million.
On that site? Yeah, that's not a good site.
It's not a good site. And even on this grant that we've supposedly were eligible, unless we do something on that site, we have to start the process again. And at the meeting last week, they're not even accepting applications now.
Right.
And if somebody, some towns been given a grant more than 20 years ago, they're able to reapply again for additions or whatever. So the numbers of towns applying even would increase. So
the only reason I suggested using taxpayer funds or at least appropriating taxpayer funds before the end of the year is if CARES Act doesn't come through, now we need to wait until the fall. And that's past our
And we lose a
deadline.
library. Yeah, we can't do that either. Yeah, it's a rock and a hard place. I just think that it's attractive to have CARES fund that first year. We can figure it out. And this, because the other thing is you said, quite honestly, is that they're not accepting new applications. So we can't, if we wanted to, if the public had, if there was support, let's say we had the forum as Selectman Hull wants to, and I support that as well. I think it's a good idea. We still can't submit an application. And, you know, there's no, even if the project is really attractive, more attractive than the renovation project, I think that there's a chance that we're on a waiting list again. And even if we were number one, that still is going to take, you know, the police station, look, that was a long process. It didn't happen quickly. And so we should be honest with people. The temporary solution is going to be a few years. And I think we need to be honest. And I think that that's what's transparent here. So
So the building needs study committee is going to reconvene, even though we just had one meeting last week where I wasn't present. The feedback from you was great. The new information about prime time is also helpful. So we intend to have another discussion based on all the facts that we have to date. And when it comes time, we'll certainly meet again before the public forum. But I think there are some options available to us to deal with that problem, because it is a problem. So we'll be fully engaged with you about that. And thank you for allowing me to stay involved. I think it's a benefit to the taxpayer and the whole situation to have you involved. So thank you.
you're the facilities manager.
So do you think we'll be able to vote on this at the next meeting, Board of Selectmen's meeting?
Yes. I'm gonna follow up with A&F by the end of this week to see if they've had time to digest any of the information we sent over. And then Mr. Aguirre said, actually mentioned, I think at this point, for the meeting on the 23rd, anyhow, we were already planning on proposing transfers to the Board of Selectmen. And already we had a financial meeting this afternoon, you know, to try to identify areas, you know, where we might be able to fund that $30,000 from. So we'll be ready just in the event as a contingency to have that funding ready to be proposed in the event that we don't actually have a good answer, or like an answer that we would hope for from the state.
Next agenda item is the minutes. I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of April 28, 2021.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Just so you know, I did have some a minor correction on it that you may not have seen. It was on a selectmen's report. I gave a report on the it's not the community garden, but the James Briggs garden that's going to be next door. And it said that Mr. Aguirre was there. It wasn't. It was actually Mr. Ferry that was at the meeting. So that's been corrected. So just so you full disclosure, that's been a change in.
Sounds good.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention, the ayes have it. Public input, just before the public gets to speak, I just want to, the three of us attended the Historical Commission's Boston Post meeting that was given to the family of Maria Barbosa. And it was a very good presentation. I want to thank the members of the Historical Commission. We happen to have a couple members here, but Pat Gales, who's the chairman, Pat Olson, Pamela Nickerson, Gail Salvi, who was here, and Rafford, who was also here, and Bill Pruitt, who was not here, but they did a great job. And Pam and myself and my wife, we went to the Barbosa farm after they had a little celebration with their family, and they were very impressed with the presentation. So I know we're going to do it, or you're going to do it in a couple of weeks, so you got a high bar now. So. But the family was very supportive, as you may not know, but there was probably 40, 45 people there, some town officials, but the family was well represented. Maria Barbosa was our oldest person in town, and she passed away before we were actually able to do the presentation, but she was aware that we were presenting her. We did it with the family for the Boston Post came. So I just want to thank the Historical Commission for the hard work they did. Public input. Is there any public input?
Library situation, the current location in the building. If we end up with a new location and they sell that property, but that would put some money toward the project, wouldn't it?
Yes, but it's an historical building, and quite frankly, I'd be opposed to selling a building. The town will use that building. The town will use it for something, whether it's a department or something. But I don't know what the board feels. I don't know what the public feels, but it would be a shame to get rid of the Andrew Carnegie building.
And it's not from the sounds of it, it doesn't sound feasible to get the 4 million and then the matching to renovate that space.
We did, the plan is, they presented a plan, it's to expand the building a little bit and put a second floor on it. It destroys the whole design of that building, quite frankly. And I saw somewhere, I may be wrong, but it was good for 20 years. And why, that's a very small spot, parking limited. And I won't support it. I guess spend less money because we would be obligated to pay $4 million. And don't forget, these are figures that were given to us a few years ago. Anybody's bought a 2x4, the price is almost triple. So the expense may go up. I actually think that we can build a better building.
What would be the I know it's not in
Yeah,
stone, but
yeah.
approximate cost of a new sustaining building beyond the 20 years?
I don't know, but I think for example, the police station, which is a lot more detailed as far as equipment and stuff that they had to have in there, was $4.5 million. So I think we can build a similar building. We don't obviously, well, maybe we do, but we won't have jail cells and we won't have that kind of stuff. But we hope not. But we won't have all those little rooms, and it's all separate, divided, and has protection for the employees over there and that kind of stuff. We won't necessarily need that for the library, but my gut feeling is it's going to be cheaper just to build a new library.
It would be a shame to lose the sales because that connects us with all the other libraries.
That's the important
We use it a
thing.
lot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what we're going on.
Yeah, and so did we. We went to Somerset a lot. And we, even if that was open as a library now, we can't use the basement. We can't use the second floor, just that main floor. And we can only fit so many people in there. So it's really not a good option for us. And the fire chief and the police chief have both said it's not safe for us to open it up as a library. So that's why, unfortunately, we have this option. We have to look at these different options. But I see, as Mr. Aguirre said, leasing is a temporary solution. It's not going to be. We need to own the building. The town of Brighton deserves to have its own library, and we shouldn't be obligated to pay somebody else annually. You want to say something, Mr. White?
So the building as it is now, what are some of the potential uses for it if we kept it and didn't sell it?
I guess I can express my
I'll give it right now.
personal feeling. I think the veteran agent could be over there. I think the maybe possibility of, I'll say in front of the building commission, the building department to be over there. It's, the public will be able to go, for this, the public will be well aware of what that building is for, so that instead of going over here or coming over here, they'll know where to go for certain services. So, but it can be utilized. I'd be so opposed to selling it, and I don't think get the money that I think you think that we be able to, or somebody may be able to get. So, Mr. Aguirre.
So there's a plan in place right now to put an accessible ramp, excuse me, on the building and an accessible restroom. Right now, the restroom is fractured. When facilities are in the closet, so it's just, it served its purpose long ago, but that library is far outlived its usefulness there. The building, however, as was said, is a Carnegie building. We're the stewards of that building, and we're responsible for making sure the generations to come. So I think by moving them out, getting the building so it's accessible, repairing some of the things that are deficient on it, will open it up for more use and more value. I think more people, not that the libraries are frequented, but I think if another town service, more townspeople would be able to appreciate the building for what it is.
The town always looks towards the future. We had the old town hall. It's called the old town hall. Next door, 1869. Instead of adding on to this building here, we utilize that space over there. Here we've done changes upstairs. We brought a selectman. We had a meeting room upstairs. It's no longer there. We meet over there now. We're using that for the town account. So we always look for how we can use these buildings rather than just build a building. The library is different. We just can't. I don't see this feasible solution to add on to the Anglo-Carnegie.
When the Building Needs and Study Committee was doing their diligence, there's an annual report from 1920 that said the library had already outlived its space. This was 100 years ago. We're still talking about it today. So
I remember that when that report
You
came
do
out.
remember that? Yeah.
They were wrong then.
Still standing strong.
Years.
So nonetheless, I mean, anybody who's visited the library sees that it's very constrained and certainly not accessible. And it's, even for the staff, they've sacrificed a lot through the years just dealing with the inefficiency and deficiencies of the building. But I think it's time that we have a healthy discussion and figure it out.
I'm gonna let Selectman Hull speak first.
Well, I hear some wonderful ideas. As a taxpayer, as a representative of the people, I hear people that are very concerned about their pockets and their bank accounts and their tax rate. What I would really like to see the task force come up with is 2 plans. Plan A, remodeling that facility and what it will cost. Plan B, a new facility. And let the taxpayers decide what they want, because they're the ones that are going to be paying the bill.
Just to clarify that, so when our number comes up, whenever that is, 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, it goes before, it'll go before the townspeople and they'll get the vote on it. But I agree with you, we should also have a second option. So it can't be just reject, my position is reject this, we need to have something else there.
Yes, that's right.
If we're gonna reject this, then let's do this.
Well, we have to.
Yeah.
Because we can't wait, I don't know, 10 years before.
Oh, yeah. Ultimately, this isn't the study committee's decision to make. We're just going to give everybody facts, and then the people will decide what the favorite library is. But it's up to us to make sure that the people are well informed. So I agree.
I'd just like to add that in 2000, I was on the library building committee to build a new library. That was 21 years ago, and we're still talking about it. And we're still hearing the same objections we heard 21 years ago. And the sad reality is,
And we had some, at the time we had some donations, G. Lopes was going through the foundation for us. And
Yeah, I just think that's a really timely point. And I remember you brought up something earlier, and I thought it was also a really good point about the folks who built libraries 20 years ago are now eligible for more grants. We could have been one of those towns that did something 20 years ago. But our job is to give everyone the facts, the options, and doing nothing is an option. It really is. But it comes with ramifications, as Mr. White brought up, where we lose our sales certification. And anyone who uses the library knows how valuable that is, because Dayton Public Library, unfortunately, isn't big enough to have a lot of the media materials that people seek. So, but I agree with Selectman Hull. We should gather that data, or the building study committee would gather that data, give everyone the 3 options: the renovation, a new library, or do nothing. We're probably going to do this temporary solution regardless.
Yeah.
But and then see where it shakes out.
And that's what we'll be voting on in the near future, just a temporary solution.
We're talking about public money and that kind of thing, as if it comes from the air, it doesn't come from us. So you're right, we have to be good stewards. Has anyone thought to go to the Carnegie Foundation? They're the ones who gave it. Has anyone actually contacted the Carnegie Foundation, which to my knowledge is still extinct?
Yeah, that's news to me if it is, but I'll take your word for it that it is.
They throw money at, they've got the 501c3, they're throwing money. I think WQED in Pittsburgh is the local public PBS station. So that's one of those things where there might be some sentimental value, because I kind of agree with you, Ken. I don't want to see the building disappear. And it's not just sentiment. There's a whatever you want to call it. There's continuity to it and everything. I'd like to see that stay there. I live pretty close. But I don't want to spend a heck of a lot of money, and I don't know where we're going to get $4,000 from
4 million.
I'm sorry. Just think of something. You know, you get my drift because we have. Library is one of those things that's nice to have. So that was my only thought on that. If we could, you know, approach the Carnegie Foundation, maybe.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman.
That is
Good idea.
Okay.
I didn't know it existed. So
Sometimes, yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
yes,
I agree with Mr. Galucci, and you as well. I think that regardless of what happens with the library going forward, that building was a gift. It is historic. It's beautiful. And I think that it's something that brought the community together. That's why the library is there. And if we could keep that building something that is community-based, and I'm not talking about expanding services, that's not what I mean. I just mean like a community center, a place where the community can go, maybe not so much, in my opinion, like a department building. I think we've split departments enough and gotten the feedback about it too. But if we could keep that community-based building, that would be my preference.
yeah, the other option, and maybe it's because I'm a senior, but a possibility of a senior center too, that people get together.
That has been brought up by residents as
I'll
well.
include you in that group too.
Conflict
I
of
won't
interest.
point to anybody else here. Any other? Yes. Is it,
So I think
Is it-
Pure Oasis bought the entire building, and they're gonna cultivate and then also rent. That was part of the HCA tonight. So I don't think that, I think their intent, we can ask them, I want to be very clear, but I think their intent was to lease the space out to other culture. Is what I was, but you've worked with them much closer.
what was that? Well, it's what's a tax revenue? So, I
Yeah.
mean, that's, we're talking about taxes, we're talking about spending money for library. This is one source of revenue for the town.
And we get the 3% impact fee on the sales if we negotiate it into the HCA, which everyone has had that in there that we have negotiated. Plus you get, you know, the real estate tax, the property taxes and all that. So it is a boom.
It's looking up.
Rafa, the concern that I have about that it may complicate the approval process with the planning board and with ZBA in regards to if you put the library up there so close to marijuana, with children coming into that building, that they may be opposed to the passage of that. Pure Oasis, you know, we talk about the tax revenue, but we're also talking about the potential of 400 jobs. And that will have an impact on this community as well. I caution people, Pure Oasis is not a done deal. It still has to get by planning board and it still has to get by ZBA. So there's still work to be done and salesmanship to be done.
And Pure Oasis is going to hire mostly Daytonians, so that's their preference. And they will hire people who have been arrested for marijuana dealing. I'm just, that's just because they were penalized years back. You know, I worked in probation for 35 years. People were put on probation, some people were put in jail because of marijuana. So now they're trying to reverse that because it probably should have been, might be able to tell from here, that it probably should have been legal years ago. So there's going to be employment from Daytonians, which is great. Not only, you know, it's revenue for the town, but it's also putting some people to work, which is a great opportunity for Dayton. That's somewhere down the road.
I think those are all good points, but I also want to add that business begets business. So I think the more jobs that we create in Dayton, then the more likelihood that you'll have restaurants and other places that want to open up. This is just my crazy idea. And service those influx of people who maybe no longer have to go to Boston for work, can go to, you know, or Providence or wherever, can now work close to home. So like it used to be with the old Raytheon and ICI.
Yeah, I see that. And it's like, no,
Dr. Z, in response to that, we have a committee that is dormant now, the Business and Development Corporation, and I'm hoping in the meetings to come that be able to get your support, Mr. Pacheco's support to work on revitalizing that committee.
Absolutely. And not just that committee, but also a Development and Industrial Commission, which is more of a marketing committee.
Yes.
any other, public input? Is there any public input on that?
So yeah, there was a little bit of input from a user, Nancy Mack. Just wanted to clarify that there will be 400 jobs total. The Pure Oasis discussed hiring 100 additional employees from the community.
I'm just not gonna bother.
I'm just gonna mute.
So. You hold that.
And it's going to be security cameras. The police department has to be involved in that. The police department has the right to look at those cameras. So it's going to be very secure.
The special permit process for the planning board addresses all of that. So they're great questions, and our planning board has been fully engaged with making sure that's part of the conditions of their special permit. So.
And that they have to have it like an actual security plan. And I think
Yes, in the agreement, the
CPD needs to, I think the chief of police has to go in there and like sign off on everything.
Yes.
I think the public should also remember that part of the reason why not just this board, but the board with Selectman Goulart as well, had been supportive of the 3% impact fee is in case something happens and you have to have more police presence or police have to go out due to calls or things like that. So and I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it's in anticipation of things like that, even though it's a business and not a family that's going to, you know, for example, send a child to school, which is a cost to the taxpayers. So we're anticipating things like that as well as best that we can.
So the revenue being used to pay the employees are marijuana facilities allowed to put money in banks. There was a period of time. Has that been rectified? Or do they have to deal in a cash business? What's the current
Yeah,
It's been
situation?
fleshed out.
Has it been flushed out?
It's easier. I wouldn't say it's
I've not
completely
heard-
fleshed
Yeah,
out.
I haven't heard anything different.
From this, because not all, the banks are FDIC insured.
Yeah.
And the rules were that your state can do something, but the banking commission would not allow deposits
Federally.
from that type of money. So if that's been fleshed out, then it's easy to make payroll for the people that
Yeah,
you're
I
paying.
thought I saw some bank, and I think it was just a Massachusetts bank that was lending them money or having some accounts, but I'm not positive of that. I can't remember the name of that
I
bank.
have an answer. I spoke with an attorney. There's one bank in the area, local area, that is dealing with. But you're right. It's
Are they
very limited.
federally insured banks?
They are.
Yeah, federal government's allowing it.
Yes, yes. And that was, I questioned him on it because I heard the same thing you did. And there's only one bank that's large enough to do it in this area. So that's who they're all.
I'm a licensed financial advisor and I'm not allowed to put clients into those types of
Investments.
investments.
Yeah, you can't, you're right. They seek private funds for investment. But the actual banking, through payroll and whatnot, there's one bank in the area that's doing.
In Colorado, for years, they were paying people with cash on their payday.
Right.
And they had a big vault in there, and that was another security issue.
Right. Right, they would. I'm not sure what they feared more, people stealing the marijuana or people stealing the money, but,
Well, the cartels were coming in because they didn't want to be in competition.
Did you, Mr. Chairman, is it okay? We had had a conversation earlier and you had said that, it's impossible to anticipate expenses and things like that that may arise from the business opening,
Yes.
but that we would monitor
Yes.
things like, okay, the police are going out a lot, the fire department and things like that. So did you want to, just for the public, because we had a couple of questions about it.
So yes, in the 3%, I mean, what the 3% envisions is any type of additional, like additional enforcement activities, like from inspection, from police, like from any public safety, like any type of additional town efforts that we would, as a town have to provide, would be included in the 3%. And one of the things actually happening in other communities across the state right now is there's a lot of scrutiny on exactly what type of expenses are included in the 3%. Actually, practically speaking, and what a lot of cities in town are having to do now is trying to quantify, exactly what type of expenses are made up. Like in the first, second, and third year, like in the 3% to quantify that. In hopes, I mean, if Pure Oasis is in fact up and running, this, the agreement approved this evening is for 5 years. And the expectation is after the 5 years, all parties would really know the true costs. And any future agreement would recognize, and better reflect any true costs that the, our community really faces and has to deal with as a result. In terms of a model, the model is really the 3%, but every in terms of a projection, they don't actually know that yet because the market is still evolving. Yeah.
we don't know that only because,
No, I'm saying the company.
yeah, the company, because they're starting off small and they hope to expand, they're gonna get other companies
So
that,
they don't have anything like this that's.
No.
They only have
Dorchester.
they have a registered marijuana
That's a
dispensary.
dispensary.
yeah, but they don't cultivate it.
Correct. So they want this site to help support their operation in Dorchester, which makes sense. We're a small, quiet town. It's not Dorchester. Hopefully, there's less crime, obviously, here. So,
Yeah, I think they talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they were gonna use 100,000 square feet to grow marijuana. There's another company that is interested, will come also before us and we'll have a similar agreement
Mhm.
that will also be cultivated, the growing marijuana there. So they hope to expand. None of the businesses there are gonna ever be thrown out. So those businesses that are there, they continue being there, but it's, I think, it's 500,000 square feet, something like that, the building. So they have
Yes.
a great potential for that, and the town has a great potential for revenue.
That's actually one of my concerns, that it would be nice, I think, if we could have a stipulation in there as far as a gradual timeframe, because since we don't have any concrete figures, because they've never done this before, they're gonna have their business, you're saying, and I've heard them say too, they're going to have another, go a certain amount of years, a certain time frame before they can't just like all of a sudden have another one, and you know what I mean? It's like not, or do we not have anything to say on that? The town of Dayton.
Well, we would be signing a host agreement with whatever new company comes in for leasing. So right now, we just made the agreement with Pure Oasis, who's talking about 100,000 square feet.
Right.
And quite frankly, they may start off with 50,000 square feet, but the potential for them is 100,000 square feet, and then they will expand
But
with
it
us.
seemed like they actually, if I heard
Yes.
and I'm
In
saying,
a small scale.
maybe like, let's keep a lid on it, you know, for the first couple of years, see how much police we need, see how much, you know, just so we know what is this actually, are we doing better with them financially, are we breaking even, as opposed to them getting another one and another one? Like,
Yeah, well, it's 3% on the gross sales whenever we sell the product to another business. I think my personal feeling is that it's going to be difficult to prove 3% because it's a lot of different things. So I don't think we're going to.
that's why I say it'd be nice to see like literally facts and figures.
Well, we know
on
what we
paper.
can
Once
look at.
they
So,
get those.
so we have somebody here in the office here who's actually keeping track of the expenses that the town. That person, while they're doing that, that's part of the 3% that we'll be asking for. It's the police is the 5. I can't, you know, who knows? But I don't think it's. I think we're going to
I'm
be able
just
to.
saying, like, put the brakes on a little bit.
I see
That's
this.
all I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. My personal feeling is, and I'm not talking about the board, we need to bring revenue into town. I see it all the time on Facebook and everything else. Want to bring businesses, and we're not forced to smoke the marijuana, not forced to anything like that. It's going to be taken out of town. It's going to go.
I would could be any businesses. I'm not singling out marijuana and the way they're running the business. However, so if you want to like talk about marijuana, the one thing that does concern me concerning marijuana is they were asked a few times in their info thing that they did a couple of weeks ago, what they plan on doing as far as a filtration HVAC type system for odor. And I really didn't get, again, any actual specific unit that they're using, name that they're using, and the efficiency and the actual outcome that this is success, it's been used here, and it's clear is, you know, it's certain percentage clear.
Yeah, I agree.
So again, I think it'd be nice for them, not nice, I mean, they should know exactly what system they're being put in. But all of that has to do with if, like you, the townspeople kind of give them the green light on, you know, those are things that they have to satisfy, correct?
Yes, but that the grant, it's the planning board that will actually give them the permit for this. So it's not us to make that decision. Obviously, we don't want odor to be an issue. And if you remember from that, I believe it was last week, they had 2 options, but they didn't say which one they were going to use.
Right.
But they
And
did say
said
what.
it might not, this one might not work that well. So it's just when you start getting into maybe not.
But what they did say was that the consultant that they hired has experience in this field, and they're going to listen to the consultant so that whatever mistakes they've made in the past, the consultant say, this filtration system doesn't work. This is the one that we're going to go with. Obviously, I can't speak for the board, but we're not going to tolerate odor coming from over there, quite frankly. So
But
I
it is the
understand it.
planning- It is the planning board that would impose that as like a condition on any special permit. And I just want to be clear, they are completely independent from us. They run their own elections. They are their own elected officials. So they would impose those conditions. And I would assume they would have a public hearing that night when they were going to vote, and everybody could come that was interested. And I think that that's a good point. I think that's fair. We don't want it to smell, obviously. And if they're not going to be the only ones over there, I think it's very fair to say that.
Actually, the end of town first.
I just have a real quick question. What kind of oversight beyond the Department of Revenue and their tax returns does the town of Dayton have over the books is coming.
Yeah.
To ensure that we're actually getting.
Yeah, I know that they're gonna have to give us an annual report that we'll all get the opportunity to take a look at. We gotta, I guess, trust the verify. Mr. White.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The verify part's
Yeah.
important.
Knowing our history is important, so we don't repeat mistakes. So I remember the gas company that was making electricity. And for a long time, we got, pretty good money from them on an annual basis under no firm obligation. And then that all came to an end. So I just want to be sure that we don't go into this blindly and remember how that can actually go
Yeah, and that
against
was,
what we thought we were going to get.
right. If I remember correctly, it was a 10-year agreement, $100,000 a year. Not year for anything, so the town actually think it was the board of selectmen decided where that money was gonna go. I'm not too crazy about. This is a 5-year agreement, and then it gets renewed, and like Mr. Mullen, our town administrator, said that we'll get to see exactly what we had to use for expenses. I don't believe we can go higher than 3%. That's state.
Yeah, that's a ceiling.
So we go with the highest figure. Hopefully, we can show that we've used that 3%. If not, it's gonna be a little less, but that would be our goal. Any other questions? Okay, I'll go to the next item. Minutes, last for
Is there
motion.
anything on there just before we move on?
I want to see is Chuck.
Yeah. I'm sorry, like we're in public comment at this point, correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we do have a hand from Jaws and Travaris, our library director. And I'll ask her to unmute so she can speak. Jocelyn, Mr. Travaris.
No, I don't really need to say anything. The conversation had shifted away from the library, so I didn't want to bring it back when it had already shifted, so it can wait.
Thank you very much, Mr. Travaris.
So we'll go to the next item, minutes, approval of the, well, we already did that, public input. We're gonna go into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 121A3, to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, I declare, in negotiations with the Dayton Police Officers, Mass, COP, COP 30C. We will not be coming back into a public meeting, so we want to have it go into executive session, and that will be it for the night. So I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
So a second.
We're going to have public input.
We just had public input.
We have a couple more things.
Nothing else? Okay.
I'll retract my motion.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, I had asked if there's any more public input. There was any. That's fine. Is there
Not on
more?
that topic. Not on the topic that we were on.
Yeah, okay. Any public input on anything else?
Is this anything?
Anything?
I see police here. I live on Forest Street in the troublemaker area.
Mhm.
The firing range. I was missing Vietnam there. I thought it was back in Vietnam.
Mhm.
2 days, just that gun range was crazy.
Mhm. When was this,
Is
if
that
you don't
recent?
mind me asking?
Yeah, this week.
I usually hear it when it's like that, and I didn't.
We're in the, working in the yard,
Uh-huh.
2 days, it's going and going and going.
Didn't we ask a while
And
ago
we
that,
called the police station, and
Mhm.
they said they had leased it for time.
We have an agreement with them that we do mutual trainings, we do some things in time, but we do allow them to use the range, but I thought we were supposed to release.
I thought the public was supposed to be notified.
Correct.
Not only
Correct.
that,
We-
not only that red flag is supposed to be put out, not everybody buys by that. So
Correct. It was
Yeah.
supposed to go on
Yes.
the
and-
website and
and
their
I
website,
think we were
social
told that
media.
it usually happens in September, so that's why I'm surprised that, was it September? But it's a good,
It
was my understanding
It was
that-
awful. It was awful. Certainly, just listening to gunfire for 2 days
Mhm.
it wasn't a weekend though, right?
No. during the week.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
asked that not be the
Retired
weekend.
people,
During the day?
Yeah.
Okay.
all day.
We were, we had asked that a statement be made on the Facebook page before the gun activity were to occur, just to notify people in the area, because some people don't drive down there and notice the red flag. So we can certainly ensure that that happens going forward. And I thank you for letting us know.
Another thing,
Mhm.
the speed limit signs on Forest Street, where are we at with that? I mean, we did a traffic study November 2019. I mean, should we go to Congress to get a speed limit sign?
I mean, I'm not sure what effect they'll have on Mass DOT, but it couldn't hurt. But in all seriousness.
Yeah, and we're gonna have a bylaw that we're going to present at the special town meeting in October to grant us permission to set.
To establish speed safety zones, specifically the one that has been discussed has been for Pleasant Street so far.
I think I talked to Brett about this.
Mhm.
Is that the 20 miles an hour?
Yes.
They're doing, the average speed is 41 right now. That was that study. And we
Forest Street,
walk
you're talking
on
about?
Forest
Yeah.
Street, and we walk there constantly. And if, you know, I'm gonna get an app for my phone that will tell me the speed, because a lot of times they're over 40. And to put a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone there, are they gonna do it?
I don't think that's what you're talking about. You're just asking for speed limit signs for the 30 miles per hour, which I believe is the
Right.
limit, right? So we can, if you can put it on the agenda, we can ask Tom.
And-
Oh, Superintendent Ferry is here. Is he still here? Oh, okay.
Is there a chance we could put a stop sign in the middle?
That has been discussed before.
We've discussed that.
Uh-huh.
We think that may be a
I missed
problem.
it.
Yeah, no, we discussed that in the past. We think some studies show that if you put stop signs, then what happens is people stop and then they speed up. Actually,
Can we
drive
put
faster to
that
get to the next.
Oh, yes.
Item just
Stop,
to
so-
circle back to Tom.
Yeah. I do feel personally that it should be 20 miles per hour for a street. The other thing is I've noticed, and we've asked the chief, police to have more enforcement of this. You know, you can throw speed limit signs up, but if you don't have enforcement, it doesn't make any sense. And I've noticed just the past couple of days, there's been cruises on different streets. So I'm glad that they're out there in the community now, and hopefully
I've seen
given
that
those
too.
speed is, I think it's but interesting about Forest Street, when they did that study, and I believe the police department had actually stopped some people. A lot of those people that they stopped for speeding were residents of Forest Street. So that's a little bit of the problem there. But that
Not me.
my personal, no, I'm not saying it's you, Adam. My personal feeling is that I don't care where you live, if you're speeding, you get a ticket.
Yeah.
And that's how you get that.
And maybe that would stop.
But you're correct that Forest Street was actually brought this to our attention. The
Mhm.
whole speeding and with Forest Street, and then we had, was it 8 streets? Not to see it, then we had
7 or 8. Yep.
7 or 8, and
We have a
one of
list.
us Forest Street, Pleasant Street. I'm not sure. I think part of William Street was done.
Correct.
Fremont Street,
Important.
Fortin.
Maple, I believe.
Really
Yeah.
big streets.
All the main 8 streets.
I just heard the other night there was another marijuana discussion that's going to go on William Street, and they were concerned about these speed on William Street is a nightmare. So
We can't slow them down. I mean, you know, too, is there's a lot of trucks go through there.
Yeah, I've noticed that,
Yeah, I mean,
especially with that construction of the house on the corner
yeah, that's,
on
On the
technically
top,
Tremont, yeah,
but there's constantly trucks. It's a cut through from
from Taunton,
Taunton.
correct.
Yeah.
And I mean.
Yeah, they fly down there,
heavy-duty
too.
Trucks going through there.
And I've seen, full disclosure, I'm involved in that historical site is at the center of William Street. I can swear there's going to be accidents almost every day. And a lot of times there's big traffic trailers that just come barreling down the hill. And if you're leaving center to go on William Street, you know, there's a hill, you may not see it, but they come down so
Right.
fast,
Yeah.
something's going to happen there. So,
So I also want you to know that we have discussed with the, just casually with the chief of police, we've bandied ideas like dedicating someone to traffic enforcement or having part of someone's dedicated role, traffic enforcement being one of their
They
priorities.
certainly could earn their own salary. It wouldn't be much trouble.
Mhm.
I mean, you could probably pay for a car and a salary, for the tickets, maybe then it would slow down.
I just know that I got a commitment from the chief that, because we just hired 2 police officers. So I said, can we get them out in the streets? Because that's what people are talking about.
Mhm.
There isn't that much crime in Dayton. There isn't crime, but there isn't that much. But speeding is a big issue for a lot of people. You got young children. That's not gonna help.
We have a very good crowd here this evening. I commend you and thank you for your participation in government. And I'm going to throw this out. I don't have an answer. I welcome your input. I've heard all kinds of discussions about 40, 30, 20 mile an hour speed limits. I scratch my head and I say, you could make it 10, but if there's no one to enforce it, you have a sign there right now at 40 and it's not being enforced. And I'm throwing this out for feedback, not because I've drawn an opinion. And I know other communities do quotas. And I'm questioning whether or not a quota system put in place with the police department may not be necessary to get speed under control in this town.
I had a thought regarding that. Well, we only have so much money and you have 2 police officers on duty at any given time in this town. It's what we have. And they have to fight and scratch for every nickel and dime that they get. I understand that their request for $62,000 was it? Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was for
For
a car.
another cruiser and some repairs or something. I understand that was shot down at the last town meeting.
45,000 was approved,
Yeah.
but yeah, the
Yeah,
full,
it was-
the full total wasn't.
It was recommended to go with 45 rather than 62,000.
And it's still 17 shy. They wanted to do, and probably needed it.
Mhm.
When you look at the individual cruisers and things like that, those things take a beating. They're all local. The brakes are getting shot every so often. Those are city miles. Those are hard miles. Those vehicles are being driven. So they need more maintenance and they need more money for it. So where does that come from? Well, you ask about a quota system, and a quota system, the problem is it becomes almost unethical. It really does. It draws out the worst instincts in people. And one of the things that we don't want is to go from what we have now, which is relative freedom, to, this overarching police state where if you drive 21 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone, you're going to get pulled over. Nobody wants that either. So there's got to be some balance. Periodic enforcement should be enough to kind of deter most speeders, but a quota system, it just reeks of a police state. I wouldn't tolerate that for a minute.
I think it's all, to your point, Selectman Hull, I think it's, and I'm not giving my opinion on that quota, although I do agree with a lot of the points you made, and I think probably a lot of people will agree with them. But I just think that the reason why people don't, and this has been said at meetings before, the reason why people are less likely to speed in towns like Berkeley is because they have a reputation of being strong on, and I'm not talking about speeding, 21 in a 20. I mean, going 30 in a 20, you'll probably get pulled over at any point. They come out of nowhere. And I think that it's going to take some time, but if we can dedicate, so if we can afford, I should be clear, if we can afford to dedicate more resources to traffic enforcement, we should, because that will go a long way to having that, in my opinion, reputation that if you speed in this town, you're going to get pulled over. And I think that is when a word gets out, because we still live in a small town where word gets around in that way, then you might see less of that speeding. Just a thought.
And if I may, speed grants, they can apply for it and get extra money to put out an officer from the state and something called the speed grant. I don't know exactly how it works, but if you really wanted that extra enforcement, that's all they would really have to do is apply for a speed grant. But I don't know exactly how any of that would work. I'm sure
We can look
Chief
into that. That's a
McDonald
good
was
idea.
just in the hallway a few minutes ago. He's the expert.
That's a good idea. We can definitely discuss it with
He's
him.
here for the executive sessions. Yeah, I also in trouble a little bit with the quotas too, because towards the end of the month, if you're doing a monthly, then all of a sudden they're gonna be stopping speeders, but you could speed at the beginning of the month and not getting stopped, so. But it's an idea, so somewhere we will discuss. Is there any,
One more thing.
Robert?
Rob LePage on 670 Main Street back. So I call Main Street, I live there,
Mhm.
around, let's see, midnight to 4 o'clock, the Autobahn.
Mhm.
I might be up in the middle of the night and all of a sudden I say, flash, flash.
Mhm.
I mean, these people are probably going 100 miles an hour, I'm serious. And if you had the offices in those nice specific spots, right near the bridge and all that,
Mhm.
they would make a mint. And another thing, one more thing, there's a relatively new 45-mile-an-hour sign going up towards William Street.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. There was one on the other side going this way towards 138 that said 35 miles an hour. That mysteriously disappeared. I don't know what happened. It would be wonderful if we could get that one back because they're going this way the same way. They think it's 45.
I thought it was a 30.
Street?
35.
I thought it was 30 going into 138.
Right, when you go up 138, of course, up the hill, that's 30, right? We don't know that. And then at a certain point, at my house, it becomes, isn't that weird? It's true. It's 45, but then
Mhm.
on the other side, going that way towards the library, it's 35, then it goes to 30 at the library. So that sign across the street from my sign in front of my house
Mhm.
is missing, 35, and I'd love to have the gentleman take care of that somehow, please.
Yeah,
Because it's,
I didn't realize it was 35.
I don't know, they started down, I don't know.
And that 50-mile-per-hour sign on
Yes.
William Street had disappeared. Does
For a
anyone
long
remember
time.
for like months and then it came back? So
And as
we can ask
The
about
speed
it.
limit,
yeah.
people coming out.
And if you live on Main Street, and I don't, you live on Main Street, it's not a very good road. So imagine once it's paved,
Oh.
what it's gonna be like.
We should address it before.
Yes.
It's like starships flying by my house. I'm telling you, it's an aliens. I'm like, it's that fast.
It's like that.
Yeah, okay, right, right.
Well, I'm impressed that you're up at midnight because I haven't seen midnight in such a long time. So,
I'm a musician, what do you expect?
are there any other questions?
It's a
comments
concern
more
more than
than-
a question.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said question and comments.
Regarding the Zoom feeds and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's much of a secret that, we want to see Lenny up there and everything in all his glory. And not that we don't want to see you guys either.
I get it. No offense.
We don't want to see ourselves
I'd like
either.
to see. At the last meeting you guys had on Zoom,
Mhm.
we couldn't see Lenny, we couldn't hear him. I could hear Brent just here and this line. I couldn't hear him. And, Mr. Mullen, I could hear you, Elder. So.
Did
For
we,
better or worse?
did we have that
So we think
panoramic
we-
camera?
we
for that
think
no.
meeting?
Yes, we did.
We just think we rectified that.
Did?
We think we did. The other day we had, we did a sample Zoom, it was me and it was Robert Woods, and there was a third, I forget who the third person was.
Jonathan
At
Gale.
home, Jonathan Gale, at home on Zoom, and they did different things with the volume and stuff like that, and we were able, there was a little bit of an echo, but with the exception of that, we could hear people in different spots.
Can you do like a microphone between each of you?
We used to have one. What happened
we-
last time?
We have one microphone and
There
something
was
about
only
it.
one last time. He didn't have one.
Does it not interface with Zoom?
That is the
that is Zoom,
microphone
but
that interfaces with Zoom. He
Listen,
didn't
the
have
cable
one.
didn't reach, doesn't reach Lenny or something kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, like
So they
there's a,
put it over here and it
Yeah.
doesn't reach him.
so yeah, there's a few things. So number one, with regards to the microphone that was used at the last meeting, that mic is set up. I'm actually to the new technology on top of the TV. In the last 4 days, we've been working a lot on this issue because we understand that it's a major issue. And like what we have found is a few things. Number one, they actually have additional microphones which we can order. So each member of the Board of Selectmen is able to have their own dedicated mic to get their audio. With audio on top of that.
We had these microphones that, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just under the impression one sat here and then he had one and then Selectman Hull had one as well. So what happened to those? Because we already had a solution.
There was
two. There were at least two. Yeah, I thought there were three.
Yeah, so the original,
I feel like Bravo right now solving this.
so the original auxiliary microphones, they don't actually interface with with the new platform, that we bought
Oh,
to
okay,
show the
okay.
whole room.
Okay.
However, in the past day and a half, based on the testing that we did, I think yesterday, we also have found out, I believe, what is actually the root of the issue. In the root of the issue, actually goes, it goes to like a Comcast issue. Actually, where the bandwidth of our wireless, over the Zoom, it basically exhausts itself, and causes way more feedback, than necessary. And that's why when we do the individual tests, everything works absolutely perfect. But then when everyone's logged on, through Comcast, everything basically overloads our bandwidth. So in talking with our IT administrator, he has already set up a way for the fiber that is in town hall to cross over the complex and into Old Town Hall, so we can set up directly to that fiber.
Because I noticed it slows down, and then it speeds up, and then everybody sounds like Alvin the Chipmunks. When in the
Yes,
room
but
that
if
we're
we
in.
plug in now to the fiber rather than logging on, actually through Comcast wireless, we should, knock on wood, be good, and that's what we're gonna actually plan to do, because I believe the fiber is already there, and we just have to make sure we're plugging into it, is from what I understood.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We had a call the other day during the day, and I couldn't come to Old Town Hall, and I had to do the meeting over Zoom. Everybody else was at Old Town Hall, and I could hear everyone. It was a little tough with the audience because if you're not at a microphone, it sounds a little bit echoey. But to address your point about not being able to see Selectmen Hall, I think that's because we sit at a straight desk, and you can see obviously my big head, and you can see Ken, but he gets you can't see you because we're all sitting in a straight line. So maybe for the next meeting we could just slightly move the table, not a lot, just like a little bit this way, so that we're sitting like this and not like this, and then you would be able to see everyone. Just a thought.
Because the camera's like
The
over
camera's
here.
right there.
It
It would be right there on the wall.
TV and the camera's above it. So it's going to catch, this is why
We
Brett
can-
actually asked for this spot. That's Brett for us. And then, play musical chairs so we can all.
I've been very patient about that. You appreciate your support, you see.
I figured that they didn't give me a real record that and then pass away. So the microphone was kind of.
Should we put numbers or
Yes.
something?
I don't like Zoom to be, if I could be honest, I don't like Zoom. I prefer this, quite
Right.
frankly. But while we have Zoom, I can deal with it. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
Just let them know.
I had requested the second microphone. I understand there is an interface problem. I also wonder if a booster to the internet at the Old Town Hall would help strengthen the signal.
Do you know what might also help is a stern call to our governmental affairs rep at Comcast. I forget his name. I will get that contact information and let him know that we're having difficulty streaming our live. So this isn't like a resident calling who wants to watch more
Yeah, no,
Netflix.
this is important.
This is,
Yeah.
Yep. I would do that. I'll be stern.
and let them know, because maybe he's not aware that our bandwidth is not sufficient to have a public meeting. It doesn't make any sense. There's no reason. So I believe his name is Mike. I will get that and we can call him.
Thank you.
Good point.
Is there any more public wrap up, Elvin?
Couple of things, the
Yes, I brought it up at the last meeting. The last meeting we had was a proclamation for Great Gay Pride Month, and I brought up that I'm seriously thinking of bringing it before the Board of Selectmen to vote on. It will be a public hearing. It will probably not be in a little room like this, possibly at the school, one of the schools, and people will have input on it. They can for or against. So just from so you know what my position is. I'm not talking about putting a gay pride flag on our flagpole out there, which has the American flag and the POW MIA flag. I would prefer not a separate flagpole either. But if you walk into the building to the where the door is to the right, there's a bench and then there's a wall. And I would ask, I would support putting a gay pride flag in June on that the building there. So I haven't decided. I've talked to our town administrator. We're thinking about the logistics of having the public hearing. I will then bring it back to the board to decide whether or not this is the way we want to proceed, as well as the date and all that kind of stuff and the place. And then the public will be made aware of that. So everybody, excuse me. It's not going to be, it's not going to be displayed. No, it's not going to be displayed this month. I'm part of the Human Rights Commission. I'm the liaison person for the Board of Selectmen. We discussed this maybe in February or March. I didn't think we should do it this year, this quickly. There needs to be conversations. And so that's why I've asked the board that I presented to the board that we're going to have a public hearing so that people can come and express their position on it. But it's definitely not going to come up. It definitely won't be on. We won't have time to have it here. Yeah, well, hopefully it stops when we actually have the vote. But I hear what you're saying. I see the same stuff on Facebook. So just so you know, it will not be this month. I will present it within the next couple of months. We'll have a hearing on it, and people can voice for or against. And then the board will. I feel strongly that the board should be able to make that decision. That we're elected by, not necessarily elected by some of you, but we're elected by the residents of town, and we should be able to have the courage to make a decision on that. Mr. White.
So I listened in on the Human Rights Committee, and I recall you saying we shouldn't go forward with this because of the animosity that it causes. And I think if we're going to run up to a vote, we're a divided country right now. We don't need any more division. And we have our stars and stripes and our flag, which is, according to our Constitution, recognizing everybody, whatever religion, whatever race, whatever color, whatever creed. And why would we go to something that is going to further cause division and finger pointing and name calling, and we've been fine with it as we are, and maybe what we need to do is start honoring what our founding fathers said that flag means, and it does represent everybody.
My major in college was history, and that's not what the founding. That flag did not represent all of Americans. It represented whites, Protestants, and landowners. That's who it represented. So it didn't represent the slaves. It is true. Study your history. It didn't represent slaves. And right now, the LGBTQ community is being discriminated against. Now,
You can't prove that. There's far more acceptance now
absolutely.
than there has ever been. I think we've made huge strides both on people of color, LGBTQ. It's far better than it's ever been, and this seems to be a rock in the shoe to just cause division. And I think you were right when you said that at the Human Rights Committee meeting, that going forward with this is probably more detrimental than positive.
I think what I said, I don't have my exact quote, but at that time, I didn't think it was appropriate to. But we're going to have that public hearing. We're going to have that discussion. People can express whatever their opinions are on this.
I think we can avoid the waste.
I would hope that doesn't divide the town, because small town with a big heart. But it's also divided those that support putting the flag up. So it's Selectman Hull.
I've said it and over again. I totally think it is unfair to spotlight and to put LGBTQ in the crosshairs. This isn't about them. It's about all groups in this community. It's about African Americans. It's about the Native Americans. Why aren't we coming up, if we're going to come up with an all-inclusive policy that, if written and written well, would include LGBTQ? So this discussion isn't about them. It's about all groups. What is going to be accepted? What isn't going to be accepted? I think it has divided the town, but it has put the gay community in an unfavorable situation, that the spotlight is on them. Having lived in the South over 30 years, and I've seen the discrimination and the vandalism and the out and out destruction and the driving out of Native Americans from that building, from their powwow and services out there on that track, to the desecration of their burial ground right behind my house. If we want to talk about disrespect, there is a lot more documented discrimination against the Native Americans in this town than anything that I've heard with LGBTQ in this town. And to be honest with you, an all-inclusive policy brings a lot more support. Because, and I get really uncomfortable because it's spotlighting LGBTQ. They're a small group, but there is strength and there is wisdom with all of the stakeholders coming together and having input in an all-inclusive policy that is written in such a way that it includes all the shareholders. So we're not talking about LGBTQ. We're talking about policy that is encompassing them and others. My frustration, they did it in Taunton, and they did it very well. So, and they're willing to help us if we wanted to go there.
I've stated my position.
So we were talking about the vision, and the statements you made, Mr. Selectman, are very divisive. You know, my father, the World War II veteran, he stood up against Hitler. The whole generation did, under that flag. And absolutely. And there are guys in this room, yours truly included, who put on that uniform and swore that oath. It hasn't expired. And that oath wasn't to white Protestant. I'm not a Protestant, you know. It's the American flag is inclusive of everything. Did we have a rough start? Absolutely. I was a history major myself. One of the benefits I had in my education was learning logic from Jesuits. Jesuits are brilliant at logic. And the if-then argument, the slippery slope, is an absolutely valid argument that, okay, this month we're going to have the gay pride flag. Next month, what's to stop some lunatic from demanding he wants the Confederate flag out there? The month after that, why not a swastika or the hammer and sickle or the most murderous regime in history? The
Are you
Chinese communists?
comparing the gay pride flag to the Nazi
No,
flag?
but what I
To
am
the
comparing,
Confederate flag?
what I
If you're
am
gonna put a
comparing is
Confederate
it's a
flag out there,
narrow,
there should
it's
be a white
narrow
flag, a
special
surrender flag.
You have one flag. And that one flag is the red, white, and blue. It's flying out there now. That's the inclusive flag. Not all of these other flags. What's to stop us from flying just any flag, a Gadsden flag, this flag, that flag? There's hundreds out there. We've got one. We've got more important things to talk about. You talked about speeding. You talked about the library. You talked about some really important things, and I was with you on a lot of that stuff. But when you start going off in that direction, man, I can't support you. I can't be. with you. So that's where we're at.
I think it's an important issue. You talked about, was it your grandfather in World War II?
No, my father.
Your father. You remember the service, the blacks were segregated? They weren't allowed to be with whites.
Wasn't right.
What? Oh, absolutely wasn't right. And it was President Truman who corrected that. But there are times in our history when people have been discriminated against, and we have to acknowledge that. I know that some people don't think that our kids or the students should be taught this stuff, but this is our history, good or bad. We're always, well, most of the time we're moving forward. We're correcting the mistakes that we made in the past. The way we treated Native Americans, the way we've treated blacks in America.
How about the way FDR treated the Japanese? He rounded them up and put them in concentration
Absolutely.
camps.
That was disgusting. You and I weren't around, but that's history.
That's what I'm talking about. So it's that kind of division. We need to get past that crap and just red, white, and blue. That's our flag. End of discussion. And let's get on to the more important things, the actual business of governing our tiny little charming town, Mayberry. You know?
There is also full of speeders. Also, another concern that I have of putting any flag before a policy, and that is lawsuits. Not just the risk and the expense of paying a judgment if we discriminate against the group, because I can think of a couple of controversial groups that are national groups that have lawyers on retainer that have no problem suing the town. But if you take a look at our budget, on town budget for 2022, there is no money budgeted for attorney's fees for lawsuits. And I'm going to have a very difficult time supporting paying a lawyer to defend against those lawsuits. Because people that want to go this direction, you've been so warned, you will be sued. The town of Dayton will not maybe sued, will be sued. So we better start budgeting legal fees for that.
Yeah.
A solid policy might prevent that.
Not to say,
Yes, so just a couple things. So we actually never fund that settlements. I believe it's a settlements line. We have a town council line, and the reason is we as a board have felt it's more fair to bring those items via special article to the town meeting and have the voters decide if that's what we should be using the money, which is probably where that power should be. I also want to say, I'm not aware, and everybody knows how I feel about this issue. I really don't have anything more to add about it. But that I'm not aware of any town in the Commonwealth that is currently flying an LGBTQ pride flag that has been sued.
They have a policy. Boston has a policy.
Bridgewater doesn't.
is there any other?
Yeah, just the fact that this
Can you
conversation,
give me your name,
Bill
please?
Mel, the fact that this conversation keeps on coming up repeatedly.
I didn't bring it up tonight, but I
No,
hear what you're
but
saying.
when it does, we're talking about it. People are concerned about it. Is lack of focus. So you did mention that you were elected to make decisions. True, but for town business. And this topic is personal politics. So it's a misuse of the power that the public has provided you. And it's a waste of resources for the town. So we're wasting time, resources, money, talking about issues related to personal politics. It's actually shameful that we've been talking about this for months. And you've changed your mind, you've also flip-flopped your opinion on this for some reason, which I'm not clear.
Well, some of us wouldn't call it flip-flopping. Some of us, I would hate to think that my opinions when I was 10 years old is the same opinions I have now. I grow, I read, I'm educated, so I'm willing to change my opinions, and I wasn't shy about it. I didn't go on Facebook and just type something up, this is my new opinion. I presented it at a public hearing, and discussing it now, and we'll have another public hearing to discuss this whole issue, that the residents of this town can come in and ask any questions, say, whatever they wish to say. So I don't consider it flip-flopping. I did strongly at that time that it shouldn't be brought up, and I wanted to get back to buy this Gay Pride Month, but I think it's an issue that we can resolve one way or the other, that we should resolve as a town. Any other comments, questions?
I just wanted to thank everyone for coming up and letting us know how you feel.
I prefer this than Zoom, so.
Or
It's nice
Facebook,
to hear everybody's voice.
and see your faces.
See your faces.
Unmasked.
Yeah.
So if there is no other, further, I'll again ask for that motion.
Entertaining?
Yes,
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss the strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chancellor declares negotiations with Dayton police officers, Mass Cop 306.
second. And I so declare we will not be returning back to a public meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming here. We're meeting next week, next Wednesday. And over there, we can hold 100 people, so we can have more people come if they wish. So I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. And we'll do a roll call. Dr. Z and Campuchico's